Hi, my name is Louis and welcome to another video by LDB Woodworking. If you're planning a nice Valentine's dinner, but you don't know what to put on the table to make it nice and special, maybe one of these candle holders in the heart shape is not a bad idea. If you want to see how, stick around and I'll show you. So as you can see, I'm just roughly marking this out. I don't even use a square. I just need a more or less idea of where to cut it, because I don't want to take these rough pieces to the jointer and try and flatten them like that, because then I will lose far too much of the thickness. On the table saw, you can see that I'm just breaking it down more or less to the marks that I've made previously, and then after I've cut them to pieces, then I turn it to the side and then I cut off that live edge. And I didn't want to do this on the jointer because this requires many passes to do. After the live edge has been cut off and I've got a straight edge, now I just rip this down into the 53mm pieces. The important thing over here is that when you cut these pieces down, you must just make sure that you don't put your fingers close to the blade, and you'll see me use a push stick to keep my fingers away from the blade. So now I'm on the jointer, and the first step is to flatten one face. So one or two passes is usually enough. I also use a push block here to keep my hands safe. And after all the faces have been flattened, I use that face and I keep it against that upright fence so that I can square off one of the edges. So at this point, all I want to do is I want one flat face and I want one edge that is completely straight and square to that face. And then the next step would be to convert the planer to thicknesser mode, which I'm busy doing there. And then I'm going to feed all of them through. So the result over there is going to be pieces that is now the same thickness, but not only that, it also means that that face that I just flattened will be then parallel to the top. Then the gluing process is fairly simple. It's spreading some glue on two of those pieces and then gluing them together in multiples of 3 to ensure that there's enough thickness then for me to mill down to the final thickness of the piece, which is going to be 50mm. Put the glue on, clamp them together, and then wipe off the excess with a damp rag, just to prevent too much extra glue to dull the planer. Okay, so we've taken you through the first few processes now. So we've taken the rough lumber. Then I cut it on the table saw, taken it down to small pieces. Then it went to the jointer, gave me a flat surface as well as one square edge. Then it went through the thicknesser to give me two sides parallel. And then you'll notice that the third side was square, but the fourth one I didn't do anything. And I basically knew this because I just wanted one square flat edge, so that when I glue them up, I can just reference this off the workbench. But the top side I wasn't really concerned about. So what I'm going to do now is the next step, and this is to take these pieces that's now been laminated, and as you can see, this is the 1, 2, 3 pieces that we laminated together. And the next step would be to mill this down to the finished size. Now, if you remember, this is basically what the aim is. So the finished size is 50mm by 50mm, which is more or less 2 inches. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these pieces back to the jointer. So what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm just going to go take a light little pass on this one to make sure everything is nice and flat, and then reference this against the fence here, and then clean this up to just take away all the unevenness from the glue process. And this is just a close-up to show you what the aim is when you're squaring off these pieces, and you must make sure that on the exit side it's nice and flat. We want to end up with about 50. So as you can see, we're nearly 60 there. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to plane all of this down. I'm going to take this over to the bandsaw and do the rough dimensioning there, and then from there I'll come back to the thicknesser. So the bandsaw makes fairly easy work of taking the stock down so that it's at a thickness where I can simply get it down to the final dimension. And you can see them going through the thicknesser now, and this is the last time that it's going to go through. And when it's done here, it will be basically final dimensions of 50 by 50. And then the milling process is then nearly complete, so now that's left is only to cut them to the final length, and you can see the measurements on the screen. So after this, we'll be ready to start cutting out the heart shapes. This is just a close-up to show you what is happening on the other side of the blade as I am busy doing the dimensioning cuts. Okay, so now I'm back at the bench. The pieces have been dimensioned, width and length, everything is square, and I've sort of tried to pair them up just so that the grains look as close as possible so that it doesn't look too much like different ones. So something like this. Then what we want to do is we want to mark where the little heart is going to go. So basically I've got this form here, and to make this is fairly easy. You take a piece of paper, you fold the paper double, and then you just cut half with a piece of scissors, and then when you open it, you ensure that both sides will then have exactly the same shape. And then you take the paper, you transfer it to a piece of MDF like this, and then you can cut it out, and then you've got a template. Distance from the bottom to the top would be then 50 millimeters, which is about 2 inches. And I'm going to cut each half one half at a time, and then when I put them together it will be an exact match. On the bandsaw I'm cutting the heart shapes, and I'm staying away from the line just enough so that it gives me enough material to sand and remove all the bandsaw marks. The blade that I'm using there is a 1/4 inch blade, and it's a 10 tooth per inch. The trick here is to give the blade enough time to cut, so you must sort of balance the feed rate and the turning rate so that you don't get to a point where you strain the blade too much, but you shouldn't be too concerned of turning the workpiece either. On the spindle sander I sand to the line, and this enables me to remove all the bandsaw marks. You can also do this by hand. It will just take a little bit longer, but this process is not something that you should rush. Take care to remove all the saw marks, because afterwards you're going to see these marks if the finish is done and there's some saw marks left. So I'm just doing one over here, but then off camera I did the rest as well. So on the sample set you can see that these ones have already been done. So if I put one of these new ones next to it, you can just see the difference. So just a slight little curve just to break that sharp little edge, and for this I'm going to take it to the router. On the router I just use a small round over bit, going along all the edges, top and bottom and all 4 sides, and take away all the sharp edges to just make this a little bit soft to the touch, and to remove a little bit of splinters that's left from the sawing process. So before you start marking, just make sure that you don't mark this on the wrong side now, because ultimately you want the heart to be the right way around when you put the candles in. So on this is going to be the top side, so I'm just going to take them one by one and simply just mark a line diagonally this way, and then one this way. So I'm drilling with a 38mm fastener bit, which is the hole where the candle will fit. I'm drilling this at a fairly low speed to prevent too much burning. And you can see how effective the dust extraction is, the pipe to the left-hand corner. So as I'm drilling, most of the chips gets sucked away, which makes it a little bit less to clean up afterwards. And I just need to mention that before I started drilling, I clamped these things together. Then I sanded everything down on the flat sides with the orbital sander down to 220 grit. And then I just sanded all the corners by hand to make sure everything is nice and smooth. Putting on the finish is the last step of the process, and I'm putting this on very liberally because the wood will absorb it to a large extent. So I put it on and leave the pieces alone for at least half an hour for it to soak in, and then afterwards I wipe off the excess. So there you have it, the final product. I've gone ahead and put the finish on, and now it's ready for your Valentine's table. So if you found this helpful, please like and subscribe so that you can be notified for my next project video, which will be a entrance hall table made from plywood, and we will get all the dimensions and cutting lists. Thank you for watching.